It is just a huge honor today to be sitting with the Ahwatukee Kiwanis Club. We have Maryann McCann, who's a board member. We have Andi Pettyjohn, who's the treasurer. And we have president-elect of the Kiwanis Club, Dale Matheson. The Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world one child and one community at a time. Your local Kiwanis Club performs many services projects in Phoenix and its surrounding areas. If you are interested in participating in community service or helping children in need, we encourage you to learn about us here on our site at ahwatukeekiwanis.org or at a club meeting. We are part of Kiwanis International, an organization serving children for over 100 years. We'd love for you to come join us at one of our meetings or a service project. We meet almost every Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. at Biscuits on Elliott and 48th Street. You do not have to be a member of our club to participate in the activities we perform which interest you. Please go to our contact page and drop us a line. Someone will get back to you. So go to ahwatukeekiwanis.org, or hell, just, I'm sure Lloyd, who owns Biscuits, would love for you to come every Thursday morning at 7:30. And how many people usually join you for breakfast at Biscuits?
Well, you never know. I give out my card to a lot of people through the Chamber of Commerce and different organizations, and it states very clearly on there when they come to visit us and be our guest, we pay for the breakfast. And Biscuits is known all over town for being a great place to go and have breakfast. So it varies, but we get quite a few new members that way.
How long has Lloyd had that Biscuits there?
Do you know? I'm not sure. It's a long time.
It used to be Chewy's.
Was Chewy's?
30 years ago, it was a chicken place. Do you remember that chicken place? It was really busy. I was shocked when it went under. It was. Do you remember the name of that? It was a chicken house.
Like 6.
It was a chicken chain, and then that went under. Then it was Chewy's, which was kind of a bar. But I think Lloyd. Do you think he's had it 10 years?
Oh, at least.
Yeah, at least 10 years.
It's probably close to 10 years, because I know I approached him when they were first took it over and were remodeling, and said, we need a place in Ahwatukee to meet for breakfast. So he welcomed us. He said, absolutely, we're opening on whatever day, and sure. Yeah, he was glad to have us.
So tell us why are you in the Kiwanis? Tell us your journey. How did you end up at Lloyd's place every Thursday morning?
When I first moved to Ahwatukee in 1989.
Wow, you're almost an original.
I'm almost a native. I didn't know anybody, and I wanted to get involved, and I've always been a volunteer. So I kept seeing little blurbs in the Ahwatukee Foothills News about Kiwanis, and I went to a meeting, got involved and joined, and now I've been a member for 26 years.
Wow. Well, thank you for 26 years of volunteering. What made you join the Kiwanis?
Well, I'm from California, and I'm new to Arizona. I'm about 8 years old down here. And I was a member in Glendale, California of a Kiwanis Club, and very happy. And so when I came here, I wanted to be a member of Kiwanis again. And my idea is it's always best to be in a community helping like Kiwanis in the city where you live. So I live in Ahwatukee, and I'm part of the Ahwatukee Kiwanis Club.
But wouldn't it have been less confusing to all your friends and family just to move to Glendale, Arizona? You just would have moved from Kiwanis, Glendale, California, Kiwanis, Glendale.
Glendale, California is totally different than Glendale, Arizona. So I'm very pleased that I moved to Ahwatukee.
And Dale, congratulations on being the president-elect. That means you'll have no free time next year.
Probably right. I moved here. I'm a new guy. I moved here a few years ago, and I joined Kiwanis because I was a Kiwanis member back where I came from in Illinois, and I knew that if you wanted to get to meet people and do things, joining Kiwanis would be a good idea, and it turned out to be that for sure.
Now, did you move from Illinois to Arizona because Illinois is number 1 in the number of impeached governors who went to prison, and Arizona is number 2? I think you guys have 4 that went to jail, and we have 3.
I left Illinois because I still had some money left they hadn't taxed. So I took that money and smuggled it down here to Arizona.
Well, hopefully while you're down here, maybe they'll arrest another governor, and you'll be a
hope so.
tie
That'd be
from
nice,
4-4. So tell us the Kiwanis story. A lot of the kids watching here are still in high school or the young. What is the Kiwanis?
Oh, well, it's an organization that specializes in taking care of children all over the world. We're international, and we have every Kiwanis Club has different avenues that they explore. One of our big things is our foster children that Andi has come up with and specializes in, and we do a great deal of work for foster children. We help in a lot of different areas, but we really concentrate on children that need help. We have a reading program where we go out and read to the kids that can't read, and then we have events such as the Easter Parade.
You just had that Easter parade last Saturday. It was only 5 days ago.
Yeah, that comes every year.
How would you give the? How was the last Easter parade? Or
Perfect.
are you still exhausted? Or are you still recovering?
No, we've learned to recover pretty quick because we move on to a lot of other projects. We don't just stick to one thing. We always have something going that we're working on.
Our Easter parade and spring fling is our biggest fundraiser of the year.
The Easter parade is also called the Spring Fling.
No, following the Easter parade is the spring fling carnival and craft fair.
And when will that be this year?
That was right following the Easter parade. Same day.
The same day.
Same day.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you can watch the parade and then go over to the spring fling.
Right.
We have carnival rides and food and entertainment all day, and so that's our biggest fundraiser of the year. And so that's how we.
Well, you're the treasurer. Did you make any money this year?
We did.
Nice.
Yep. So that allows us to continue another year and helping kids.
And Maryann, so that you brought the foster idea of children that different Kiwanis clubs have different focuses, and you brought the foster care. Where did
I
that
did.
come from?
Years ago, there was an organization in town, you probably remember it, called Connecting to Serve, where different service organizations, churches, the schools, we all got together for a monthly meeting and shared ideas. And at one of those meetings 7 years ago, we had a speaker from what is now DCS, and they were talking about
And
the
what's
need.
DCS mean?
Department of Child Services.
Okay.
So they were talking about the need for help in the foster care system. And that was the first time that I realized personally that some kids within the foster care do not live with families, but they live in group homes where there's anywhere from 8 to 12 kids living in a home with round-the-clock staff. So it's not really a family situation.
It's like a mini orphanage.
It's a mini orphanage. And at that time, it was just before Thanksgiving, and I asked the question, what happens to these kids during the holidays? And she said, well, nothing happens unless someone makes something happen. So if a church or a service organization adopts the home for the holiday, then they can make something happen. Otherwise, they have no holiday. So I thought that was unacceptable. And I talked to other Kiwanis members, and they were interested in helping. So we ended up, as a Kiwanis club, providing Christmas gifts for 47 boys, teen boys that year, that were living in group homes. And from there, it has expanded. We've been doing it every Christmas since. Last year, we did almost 200 kids with the help of Kiwanis, but also with the help of the community.
And were those kids, is this all your local Ahwatukee, or is this
No,
statewide?
these are citywide. I mean, we have group homes statewide, but the homes that we were helping are primarily in the East Valley.
Wow. And so, what was the typical scenario? A volunteer family would go pick up a child and bring him home for Christmas?
No, it's not that easy, because with the foster care system, you have to be fingerprinted in order to bring the kids into your own home and that type of thing, which my husband and I have done since then, and many of our Kiwanis members have done that. But what we did was we provided Christmas at their home, at their group home.
Oh, okay.
So we collected Christmas gifts. We have collection boxes all over the community, and we collected gifts for these teenagers, and they were given to the group homes. We wrapped the presents. Gave them to the group homes, and then they put them under the Christmas tree for Christmas morning. I was told by one of the staff members of one of the group homes the very first year, she said that she hates even putting up the Christmas tree, because she said most of the time there are no gifts under it.
Oh,
And so we just make sure that they have gifts under it.
man, some kids are luckier than others.
Tell them about the bridal shower. That's a big event.
Then we have, not bridal shower, but a baby shower.
Baby shower.
The bridal was before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully. But unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. So after a couple of years of being involved with the foster kids and group homes, I found out that we have 4 group homes in the valley that are for parenting foster teens. So some of these girls are pregnant thanks to mom's boyfriend or family members, or could just be their own boyfriend. But they are in foster care and they are pregnant. And one of the problems with that is that
That was her ankle collar going off. The police should be here shortly.
the mom is a foster child and receives state benefits, but the baby is not in the foster care system, so does not receive any benefits. So I found out that most of the girls within the system choose to keep their babies versus giving them up for adoption, which I'm not really happy about, but I understand, because these foster kids have a need for someone in their life that they can love and that will love them. And they think of that child as being a person that they can love and that will love them back, because they've not had love in their life. So we decided, again, I talked to Kiwanis and I talked to some friends of mine, and we decided to put together a collection of baby items for these teens. And we were so successful in collecting items that we also helped the teens that are in the Compadre High School teen parenting program, and also moms that are in the various homeless shelters throughout the valley. So we do this as a summer project, and we collect new and used baby items for these needy moms.
Wow. That is amazing. I bet you just got several volunteers right now just telling these stories. You got me teary-eyed. So Dale, tell us about your journey.
Well, my journey is helping her.
Doing what I want you to do.
She points at me and I go do it pretty much.
He's my go-to guy.
But Andy's really done a lot for these kids. I wasn't even aware of the problem until I got here, of course. Was there 20,000 foster kids in the state of Arizona?
20,000?
Yeah, I think
In the state of Arizona.
there's like 17,000 officially at this point in time.
A huge number.
Wow. And what is the situation that creates most of them? I mean, what is there like, like 3 main reasons why you're a foster child?
Well, some of the kids are in there just because their parents maybe died in a car accident and they have no family. So that happens. But unfortunately, most of it is because the parents are maybe drug abusers. So parents are on drugs or in jail, and they're taken away from an unsafe situation.
Yeah, and
There's
it seems
way
like,
too much of that.
yeah, and it's always changing. Remember when we were little, it was like angel dust and PCP, then it was crack, and now it's opioids.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, so
it's always something.
It's a huge problem.
Do you think it's the same size of the problem today than it was when we were little?
I think the problem was there when we were young, but now people are doing something about it. Neighbors are more aware and more likely to make a phone call and turn in an abusive situation that they see. Teachers are making people aware of situations with the kids. So I think that people are more aware of it now, and we're not allowing it to happen. Kids are not having to remain in that unsafe situation.
So you're saying probably 20, 30, 40 years ago it was more everybody just kind of minded their own business and looked the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And now people aren't minding their own business and they're trying to do something about it.
Right, exactly. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. I was Ryan, Google, when did 911 even come out? By the way, update on 911. Did you know what happened yesterday? They updated. Now you can text 911.
You can text 911.
You heard about that?
Yeah.
I heard about that. I think
Yeah.
that should have come a long time ago.
Well,
1957.
Really, it was 1957 was
First
911?
catalyst for a nationwide emergency telephone number was in 1957.
Man, I was born in 1962, and I could have sworn I was older than 911. Wow, that's. But I remember one time I was at 48th and Elliott gassing my car, and there's a car wreck. So I called 911 right there at the gas pump, and she goes, "What's the description of your car?" And I'm thinking in my head, I can FaceTime my 80-year-old mother. Why can't I FaceTime you and just show you the car scene? And you hear other people, they're saying, well, can you describe the person? And you're like, well, you could be looking at him right now if you had what every kid at Desert Mountain Point has. So Ryan, what's 2018 minus 1957? That's an old system.
Long time.
That's 61 years old. Wow, I cannot believe that they had 911 on the dial.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Huh, I never remembered it on
I
the
don't
radio.
remember that.
You don't remember it either?
No.
Do you?
No, I mean, I never thought of it when I was a kid. I was born in 51. I remember the phone operators. You just pick up the phone and say, hey, we've got this problem.
Right.
And the whole town knew because it was a party line.
Yeah, these kids might not know party line. So when we were little, the party line was the whole block, right? It was on the same deal.
Yeah.
And you would pick it up, and there'd always be someone talking. And of course, if you were a gossipy, squirrely little kid, you might listen in on some gossip or whatever. But if it was an emergency, you'd have to say, hey, everybody get off.
Yeah.
Because I got to call someone. So at first it was a party line. I think the greatest advancement to the phone, I'll never forget, I think I was about 10, but the phones were nailed on the wall. And Mom, she had her kitchen and her desk and all this, and her cord was only about 6 feet long. And Dad bought her like a 20-foot long phone cord.
Yeah.
And she was opening that up Christmas Eve. She saw it. She literally screamed. and ran into the kitchen, and all of her 7 kids followed, and then she was seeing how far she could go each way with this new cord.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves.
Yeah, and I think to myself, and now I can put my phone in the pocket. And the other thing about that is, not only does it have a camera, but when we were little, only rich people really could take camera. You had to buy the film. When you took the picture, you don't know if it's any good or not. Then you got to go develop. Then you had to wait 2 weeks. Then you got your 12 pictures back and found out you had your thumb in one of them and the sun was in the other. And now these kids are taking 20 studio portraits a day and texting them. That's why sometimes it frustrates me when people say, Americans aren't any richer today than they were 50 years ago. It's like, well, have you seen the phone 50 years ago? Did you see the camera 50 years ago?
I made a living selling computers years ago. You're right. The first computer I sold was about this big. And I don't know how much it weighed, but it didn't have anywhere near the computing power that phone has.
Yeah, they say this has an iPhone has more computer power than what landed on the moon.
Well, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
And a lot smaller package.
So I want to go back. Where does this spirit of volunteerism come from? Why? I've read things that only 14% of Americans volunteer. Is that about what have you heard any numbers?
I haven't heard that specifically, but I would believe it because there are some people who just are not volunteers.
Ryan, Google what percent of Americans volunteer. And volunteer comes in, it's either charitable, or I would say, what would you call it if it was religious based? Faith-based? Or what would you call it? One is non-faith-based? Or what's the difference?
Yeah, we're non-faith-based. Faith-based. But
where does this come from?
25%.
25%?
24.9.
24.9. Well, that's good. 25% of Americans volunteer. What do you think went right or wrong in your childhood to make you grow up and want to be a volunteer?
Well, I've always loved helping people. I get along well with people. As a board member of Kiwanis, I represent us at the Chamber of Commerce. And as Andy said, the Chamber of Commerce works with us. I wouldn't have met you or Ryan if I wasn't there promoting and letting people know what we're all about. And they also help with the baby shower. They'll allow us to come and put a box in their facility so people coming in can donate. And other businesses have done that same thing, which I think is really nice because that gets the community interested in it. But I think the most important reason for me is I love kids. And so where should I be? An organization and help with with children. I mean, that's what it's all about. And I feel good about it. For this past month, I charted my hours out, and I had 31 hours of volunteer work that I did.
In 1 month? But they pay you what, $29 an hour?
No pay, but you get recognition, and you feel good inside, and you know you're giving back to your community.
I think it's about paying your civic dues. You can't live in a community and not pay your civic dues. And you do that through community effort like we're doing, Kiwanis, or whatever else you might want to join. But it's a responsibility that everybody should have toward their community, I think.
But where does this come from in your journey? I mean, from being a little boy in Illinois, why do you think you feel a civic duty?
I grew up at a time when you didn't have rights. I always get a kick out of the kids talking about rights now. I didn't realize you had rights. We have responsibilities. My folks and the community told me about my responsibilities. So you learn you have responsibilities. You should grow up. At least I did.
And it's tough for me to evaluate childhoods because I have friends that their dad was a drunk. So they've never had one sip of alcohol in their life. The dad was always drunk, beating up mom, said, I'll never drink that fire water. And then the next kid, he's a drunk, and he says, yeah, well, so was my dad. I mean, so it's like, I don't know what to make of childhoods. But like one of the kids, the smartest guy in my dental school class was Brian Newworth. He was an orphan. He was an orphan. Some people would say, well, I'm just going to give up because I was, so it's really weird with childhood. Some kids just grow up in hell and it just makes them everything they are. And then other people grow up in that and lose. What do you think made you feel?
I think, as I said, mine was what I would consider normal. Again, in those days, we grew up centered around the neighborhood school. And everybody in the neighborhood school did neighborhood school projects. We did paper drives. My mother was a brownie leader, even though we had no daughters. She was a brownie leader in the Boy Scouts.
That's because she wanted a daughter, right?
Probably
she was
true.
adopting a daughter for a day.
Probably several of them, actually. But see, you sort of learned that from the environment you were in, I think. That you do these things, and everybody did them.
Were your parents volunteers?
Sure.
Your mom was a brownie leader, and dad too?
Yeah, we did. We were, again, centered around the school, basically. In my case, I also did the Boys Club. That's where we went. We didn't have TV when I was a kid, so we went every night to the Boys Club.
Yeah, I had a 8-block walk from my home as a childhood to Blessed Sacrament school. It was 8 blocks, and halfway through was a Boys Club. And I had 5 sisters. None of them wanted to do any of that stuff. And to walk in there after school, and then I think of the gazillion hours I spent in there, and if that wasn't there, maybe I would have been getting into trouble.
Well, I'm sure that would be true for me, because I lived in a neighborhood where you could get into trouble very easily.
Yeah.
So I had about the same 8 blocks to the Boys Club.
Yeah, but mine was different. Mine was uphill both ways.
Well, yeah. And the snow, too. In the snow, you get snow like this. But I spent all my time there, pretty much, the craft shop and learning how to make 10,000 knick-knack shelves that my mother had to put up on the walls and stuff like that. But that and a swimming pool and a gym, and that's where you spent your time. But that was also, they taught you about community activities in that environment as well. You had to do things to benefit the community, not just be benefited. So I think that's where it comes from, for me anyway.
What about you, Andy? And by the way, you're the first woman, Andy, I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh,
Is that was your mom creative and artistic, or is that a family name?
I was supposed to be a boy.
You're supposed to be Andy with a Y.
I was
but you
supposed
end
to
up
be Andy with a
an
Y, yeah. My family didn't have anything. I grew up very poor, but yet
What parts? What state?
in New York State,
Okay, New York.
outside of Buffalo. We never had anything, but yet my mother was always the first one to say, "I'll help you." My mother was a drunk. Part of the reason why we never had anything. But yet, the one good thing that I got from her was she was always the first one to volunteer her help, her time. She had no money to give, but she volunteered her time. And so from the time that I was a little girl, I was a candy striper at the hospital. As soon as I was old enough to work, then I worked in the coffee shop in the hospital, but I always volunteered. And I've been a hospice volunteer. I volunteered in my kids' schools, but never was in a situation where I had a lot of money where I could help financially, but I could volunteer my time.
Time is money.
Yeah, and it frustrates me sometimes when people will say, "Well, I don't have time to do that." Well, give me a break. I've had kids. I own my own business. You find the time for what you want to do, to what you want to help with.
Ryan, Google, how long does the average American spend on a screen? They used to say, how many hours a day do people watch TV? But now it could be an iPad, an iPhone, so they call it screen time.
It says 10 hours and 39 minutes. The entire day. This is according to CNN. Hold on, let me see if there's a different...
They call it for screen time?
Americans put more than 10 hours a day to screen time and growing. This is CNN.
Yeah, I mean, when we were little, it was the stat for 20, 30, 40 years was the average American spends 4 hours a day watching television. But that television was a big box in the room. So now that it's a little screen in your pocket, they're watching it at school, they're watching it at work, they're watching it all day long. And then they always say they don't have any time.
And Andy was
But-
mentioning what she did. It made me think of, I told you about being around the neighborhood school. That's where the Thanksgiving baskets, we get together Thanksgiving and Christmas baskets for the neighbors. None of us had any money, which I think is so funny. We used to give out turkeys and stuff like that. We'd gather for Thanksgiving. I always thought, I think back on it, we should have been getting one. But for some reason, my mother was active and she was always in charge of that sort of stuff. And that's what we just delivered them.
Yeah, but like you said, though, there are some people who are volunteers, and it doesn't matter how busy they are, they will find time to volunteer, and other people who are not. So, that's just the way our society is.
So, thinking of, I'm trying to find out where this comes from because I know in our dental community, they break out into charitable dentistry and missionary dentistry. So there might be a group going to, we've gone to Mexico, we've gone to Africa, but some of the groups are missionary and they're doing it as a religious belief for a higher power. And then the next group, they're all doing it charitable. So is that kind of a split, you think, between missionary and charitable? I mean, some people are...
I think in any group, I don't care what it is, you can always apply the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
80% of the people won't do anything, or 20% will do most everything. So if you went to a dental group or whatever, you've got 20% of your dentists are probably doing things for free, and the other 80% are not doing so much. Just an 80-20 rule. I think it applies everywhere.
But this would be a neat group because some people do this for religious beliefs through their church, and you guys are a great avenue. If someone's like, well, I don't really, I'd rather just do it for the charity. I'm, not faith-based, but...
Yeah, and we work with churches, with different churches. We another thing that we do is we put on a Thanksgiving dinner, again, for foster kids in group homes. And we have...
where you take the dinner to them?
No, there is a big Methodist church in East Mesa, or in Central Mesa, where they have a big commercial kitchen. They have a large room that will seat 400 people.
Wow, that's a huge church.
And we put on a Thanksgiving dinner, and we invite kids, foster kids that live in group homes, to this church for the traditional Thanksgiving dinner. And we have several churches that help us with that. Our host church helps, of course. Their congregation is very active in that, but we also have some churches in Ahwatukee that help us with that event as well. And so we're, I can remember the first year that we did it when we got 2 Methodist churches helping, and then we had a group of Mormons that wanted to help, and it was like, ooh, should we let them? Well, why not? They're volunteers.
Right.
So we said, as long as Kiwanis is involved, this is not a Methodist event. This is a community event.
Right.
And they're part of the community, and if they want to help, all power to them.
Right.
So
Yeah, it takes. So, what do you think are the pillars of a community? There's not very many things that pulls a community together. There's not that many strings. There's education, there's religion, there's government, there's business, there's volunteers. So, it's kind of a weak fabric that if you go back through history, a lot of times a society will fall apart. And so every little stitch you can to try to keep holding it together. How do you evaluate Ahwatukee as a community?
I love it. And I think that we are more joined as a community since there has been social media. I think that helps a lot because we can put out on Ahwatukee 411 or Ahwatukee Friends or on Tukeetown now that we're doing this event, and who wants to help? And people will, there's a lot of people out there that want to help, that won't make that first step themselves. But if they see a way that they can help, they'll do it. And whether it's donating Christmas gifts or their time to crochet blankets or whatever the case may be, there are people out there in the community who want to help. And I think that,
We had that
I think social
happen
media.
at our gift wrapping for Christmas, remember?
Exactly.
We were wrapping gifts for Christmas, as Andy was saying. We were doing that at the Lutheran Church up here on 48th Street.
By Safeway?
Yeah. And people, we of course had a bunch of people, and we were all in the big gymnasium or whatever it is, doing all this. And people were involved in the church came walking by and just came in, wanted to help. They just showed up.
They didn't know why we were wrapping gifts.
What are you doing?
But we're gift wrapping, so they had some time, they would help.
No, it's real easy.
Now, you've been here 28 years, right?
Right.
That Lutheran church, I thought the most comical thing about that church, they had 3 pastors in a row that were Don. Do you remember that? It was like
Yes.
Don
Yep, because Don Schneider
Schneider,
is one of our founding members of the Kiwanis
Right.
Club of Ahwatukee.
right? And then then his next in line, it was what, Don Miles or
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I just
it was
remember
like-
it was Pastor Don, and Pastor Don.
I thought they had a thing with Dons there, didn't they? That is neat. So, were both of your parents volunteers?
My mother was a volunteer, not so much my dad. And I grew up in an affluent family, and I was the most spoiled child because I was a girl and had a younger brother and an older brother. But I was the favorite. And then my parents decided to name me Maryann after my 2 grandmothers, so I could do no wrong whatsoever. But my parents were strict, and my mother used to say, love is discipline. And at 5 years old, I think I knew how I was going to be a Republican. I knew I was going to go to college, and this was just what I was told I was going to do. But I saw my mother going to the playground and helping at bazaars and doing ceramics and teaching ceramics, and she didn't work. Now, my dad used to get mad because he'd come home and he'd have to make dinner, and we'd have to do the dishes, and he'd say, you don't work and you don't do anything at home. And my mother had the IQ of a genius, and she said, I'm too intelligent to do housework. I give my time to people and kids.
And that's really been one of the largest changes I've seen. When I was little, almost in Wichita, Kansas, all the moms were stay-homes. And now the majority work. I mean, that's really been a cultural change. Would you agree with that observation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so your mother she wasn't stimulated by being, I know some stay-home mothers that they feel
My mother
so
was
lucky
a
they can.
stay-home mother, but we were out all the time.
Yeah.
We were at playgrounds. We went to parks. She did a lot of things for people, and she'd take us with her. And then our ages were so different. I have an older brother, 8 years younger, and I have a younger brother, 5 years younger. And people would say, are these 3 children from the same marriage? And she said, yes. And she felt it was exposure, getting us out, taking us places, meeting people.
Nice. So what do you think makes the ones listening to you saying, love your mission, love your work, love everything you're doing? It's kind of like joining a gym. They say after New Year's is the biggest rise in gym memberships because that was the impetus to say, okay, I'm going to change my ways this year. Could you encourage them to help make that first step?
Exactly. Take the first step. Give us a call. Show up at a meeting. You'll enjoy it. You'll find out what we do and what we're all about.
And when you say show up at a meeting, you mean biscuits?
Yes.
Thursday mornings, 7:30. And I also really like, congratulations on your website. I've always liked It's Ahwatukeekiwanis.org. Ahwatukeekiwanis.org. And you have a lot of explanation. You have about us, become a member, Easter parade and spring fling, our activities calendar, contact us, photo albums, member log. So why on the Kiwanis, the logo, it's all handprints? Is that just children's hands, or did you guys make that yourself, or is that the national one?
No, it's not the national one. It's just
It's yours for Ahwatukee?
just ours for Ahwatukee.
Wow. And who did you make that, or who made that?
No,
Some- You're not the artsy craftsy
I'm not the
one?
geek. No, I'm definitely not the computer geek.
So what about demographics? Are you guys old, young, boys, girls, retired, still working? You said today that the president, Mike Schmidt, couldn't make it because he was working. So obviously they're not all retirees.
No.
Right.
Well, what does your gang look like? What does your tribe look like?
Well, we have some people who are supposed to be retired, but they work part-time because they just really like working and contributing to the community. Then there's other people who are the age where they're supposed to work and have a job to go to every day and need the money to pay the bills. And like you say, it's a massive members who are from different parts of the world and have different, ideas of what they like to do. I did want to say one thing, though, that in the fall, we have a back-to-school drive where we take children for school clothes and pay for them, and that has been a very rewarding thing to do.
Wow. I bet there's a lot of women that just heard that love their, what do they call it? Their retail.
If they like to shop,
They
that's
like to
good.
shop
What do
till
they
they
call
drop.
that? Retail therapy. A lot of
Yeah.
women say, when I get stressed, I do retail therapy and go shopping.
Well, they could volunteer their time and do it there. One thing that I would like to say to people is that even though we do a lot of things, a member does not have to do everything. Like Maryann said that she had put in 30
You never
hours.
told me that.
30 hours.
31 hours.
You only have to do everything that I
31
ask
hours.
you to do.
Oh, okay.
But you don't have to put in 31 hours a month. A professional person who's still working doesn't have that amount of time. But like with our Reading is Fundamental program, I don't do that. In 26 years, I have done that one time. My idea of a good time is not reading a book to a kid. So I choose not to do that. So my efforts are put in things that I enjoy doing. People don't have to come to every meeting because, especially with email and social media, you can still be involved without attending the meeting. So our times have changed. We're making it easier for younger people to be members. And we do have a good group of young people that are members. Our older ones are dying off. And
Some have reached the cane stage.
our oldest member is 94 years old.
No kidding.
And bless her heart, if you need a volunteer, she's the first one to raise her hand. But you don't have to do everything. But you can still be involved and say, okay, well, I'm here because of the baby shower, or I'm here because I want to be involved in the Easter parade, or I'm here because I want to do this. And you have those options. Now, we don't want necessarily members who are just going to put member of Kiwanis on the resume and not take part in anything. So that doesn't do our club any good, nor does it do the member any good.
Ryan still has a sunburn from the Easter parade. You should put that on your resume. I was sunburned for a week from the Ahwatukee Easter parade. I'm on your website under our activities. Foster Youth Christmas. Reading is Fundamental. Back to School Shopping Spree. Foster Youth Thanksgiving, Salvation Army Bell Ringing, Community Baby Shower, Bikes for Tykes, Key Clubs, Builder Clubs, Camp Ahwatukee Kids Camp.
Ahwatukee.
So talk about the Bikes for Tykes. Was there, I think I read it in the Ahwatukee Foothills News, somebody was repairing old bikes for kids, or?
We started that a lot of years ago. My husband actually does Santa Claus gigs. He's been a Santa for many years. And he was doing a Santa gig down in Stanfield, Arizona, where it's a very small poor farming community. And one of our friends owns a business down there, and they would put on a Christmas party. And they would give away they'd probably have about 200 kids that came to this event in that community. They would give away 7 or 8 new bicycles. And so 7 or 8 out of those 200 kids got bikes, but a lot more kids wanted bikes. And my husband came home from that one year and he said, I was thinking, why doesn't your Kiwanis Club collect bikes? And then we could take the bikes down to that community, and they don't have to be brand new ones. They could give away more bikes, because some of these kids were just in tears because they didn't get a bike. So that's how our bike project started many years ago. My brother-in-law at that time in East Mesa turned out to be our bike repair guy. And we would get bikes turned in by people. He would put on new tires or new tubes, oil them up, and we would be ready to go. After that, after he got to the point where his health wouldn't allow him to do it anymore, I put a post on Facebook and said, we need a bike repair guy. And I had a community member from Ahwatukee repairing bikes. And then we got involved with foster kids, and we started giving a lot of the bikes to foster youth. We since have lost our bike repair guy, but I just saw on Facebook this week that there's another guy in Ahwatukee who is fixing up bikes. So
Nice.
we're going to connect and see if we can work together on fixing up bikes and giving them to kids who need them.
It's funny, I read in the papers, like, of the 50 states, our state capital happens to be in Phoenix, so it's the largest state capital. The city limits is 1 million, and they're always talking about Phoenix is 3.8 million. But, I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, and I just feel like I live in just a little small town of 85,000. I mean, I'm surrounded by the Mountain Preserve, the Indian Reservation, I-10. It really has that small town feel.
I agree.
That just happens to be next to this monster city. But I mean, I don't know if I'm embarrassed or proud to say this, but about the only time I ever leave Ahwatukee is to go to the airport.
Well, you're only 20 minutes away, 15, 20 minutes away.
Yeah. I mean,
We found Ahwatukee by accident. We'd always gone to Mesa. We flew in for spring training. That's how we started coming down here. And we tried to find a place and we looked all over. And finally, our real estate gal said, "Have you thought about Ahwatukee?" To which we said, "What's an Ahwatukee?" And here we are. And it's great. I'm with you. I like the idea of everything I do is within probably 1.5 miles of my house.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't go anywhere either. Yeah.
And do you think the worrying about the new interstate coming down the south border because right now there's only 4 roads, and it was so small town, because in a small town in Kansas you only have 4 ways in. You got two lane highways meeting up, and I think for a lot of the charm was there's only 4 ways in or out of this place, but now it's going to be 7. Do you think that will change the flavor of Ahwatukee?
I don't think so. I've not been against the freeway at all. In fact, I think those of us who work out of the Ahwatukee community, I think it's going to help our commute. So we won't have the trucks on I-10 that we do now. So, I mean, I like the idea. So, and I don't think that it's gonna hurt us.
The reason I don't ever think about it or get involved because when I got here in '87, it wasn't Phoenix in '87, was it? Ryan, what year was Ahwatukee annexed by Phoenix? Let's see how clear my mind was.
We were part of Phoenix in '89 when we moved here.
Was it '89?
Good part of Ahwatukee is actually owned by a lady in Illinois.
1918.
It was '82.
City of Phoenix annexes 16.5 square miles. Future Ahwatukee for those.
16.5 square miles. Huh. That was, yeah, I guess 82. And the only trivia that, the only part of Ahwatukee that's not Phoenix? Do you remember Mr. Grace and his wife? Mm-hmm. That owned Grace Inn?
Uh-huh.
When he went to put that hotel in there, he asked the city of Phoenix to build him an exit pass off I-10. They said, no, we're not doing it. We don't have the money. So he got permission to build it himself. And clear back in the day, that was a several $100,000 project. So he built the exit off I-10 onto Elliott, and then went down. He had the one street that went to 51st Street, and then he built his Grace Inn. But he owned where that medical dental building is, and the gas station is. And then years later, I guess Ryan said it was in '82, they annexed it, and then they gave him a tax bill, and he said no. And so he took it all the way to the Arizona Supreme Court, and he says, I had to build out this whole thing, and now they just want to come back and steal it and tax me. So that is the only part that's still Sedgwick County. So if you're at that gas station or a Grace Inn and you call the police, the sheriff comes.
I found that out because I was in a little fender bender right off the freeway, and called 911, and they said it was the sheriff's department that needed to respond.
And
Yeah,
did they
and
respond very fast?
No.
Yeah, that's the issue.
I mean, that was years ago, but yeah, I that was the first time that I realized that little piece was not Phoenix.
Because sheriffs are usually, driving 50 miles that way down the interstate and coming back. They're not, so that is an interesting deal.
Yeah.
And I always wondered, is that why they put the medical marijuana dispensary there? Because we just have one. What's it called? The Sunflower?
They just changed their name. It was like Sunflower. Now they just changed their name to something. I don't know what they changed it to.
But were you guys aware that that was our only medical marijuana dispensary?
I knew that there was one there.
And they put it right there, and I thought, I'm a dentist, I'm not a lawyer, but the first thing I thought was, I wonder if it's something legal about Phoenix versus county, of why of all the places in Ahwatukee, they picked the only place that's not Phoenix. I don't know. We're digressing. So you talked about that. I still tell them about camp. I'm not even trying to say it. Ahwatukee.
Camp Ahwatukee. It's outside of Prescott. There's another Kiwanis Club called the Camelback Kiwanis Club that I've been working with this camp project for many years, and we bring up usually anywhere between 70 and 100 kids from the inner city, and give them a weekend of a camp experience. And they have arts and crafts, hiking, an obstacle course, archery. We have an astrology group from Prescott that comes one evening.
Astrology or astronomy?
Astronomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you read my palm?
Yeah, sorry.
Is it
Astronomy.
palm reading?
To look at the stars and all that. They do the campfire, make s'mores, and the whole camp experience. And I've been working with the Camelback Kiwanis Club for probably about 15, 16 years now with that project, and try to get as many of our volunteers to go up with us that we can. And it's one of those hands-on project where you can see these kids who they don't have anything. Many times it's their only time that they've ever been out of the city limits. and of course never would have the opportunity to go camping with a family member. And so it's always a real fun experience.
So, are you a camper? Are you?
Not personally anymore.
Yeah. How about you?
Not anymore, but when I was a kid, we used to do that. Again, in Rockford, we had the Rotary Club, big, and they owned Camp Rotary, which was
really?
outside of Rockford. And you went to the Boys Club if you were in dire straits like we were, and you went in the spring, and they'd put you, which I think is funny, I think put all these little kids on a stake truck and drive them out to the camp. The lawyer would have a heart failure now. But we used to do that, and you clean up the camp, get it ready for spring, for summer, and you could earn your way on and go to camp. So I went to camp every week all summer, based on my effort with the Boys Club, learning cleaning up. It was a fun time to do that. Yeah. I don't camp anymore, no.
How about you?
Well, I went off to camp one summer, and my mother and dad paid a lot of money for me to go to this camp. And they weren't quite sure they should, because they thought I'd want to return home right away. But I promised I would not. But on the way, I put up a scene, and I want to go home. I'm going home. I want to get out of the bus. I want to go home. I want my mother. And so the bus driver had to stop and call my parents. My parents had to come get me. And my mother said, I knew she was going to do this. I knew she was going to do this. And that was the end of my camping experiences.
Because I was the most brand loyal. When I was a little boy, I always gassed. And so it was Phillips 66.
It was created a joint venture with Chevron, so it looks like it was developed by Chevron.
So we were in Kansas, and Phillips 66 had in Cimarron, New Mexico, had this Philmont Scout Ranch. And I mean, it was the biggest thing you'd ever seen. Of course, I don't know how big it is now that I'm older, but when I was a little kid. And every summer I got to go there, and it was 10 days, and it seemed overwhelming because the journey was like, they were usually like a 50-mile journey each summer. But that was the coolest part of every year. And I always thanked Phillips 66 for that, for Philmont Camera. I think it was the founders, became a gazillionaire, and that was his hideout. I think everybody always said that was, that he was retired up there in one of the mountains somewhere. I don't know if it was rumor true. Well, gosh, guys, that was the fastest hour we've ever done. I can't believe that we already been yakking and talking for an hour.
Yeah, and I have my dogs in the car, so I need to...
Your dog's in the car. But seriously, thank you so much for all that you do to help tie the community together. It's the volunteers like you three that just really tie the whole community together. Thank you for all that you've done for the community, and I hope that you recruited, come on, one Ahwatukee Townie might join.
I hope so.
And thank you very much for coming.
You're more than welcome.
Thanks
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.